Okay, first we're going to go through a couple introductions. My name is Mark Courtney. I'm AVP for Creative and Brand Experience, and I work in the Office of Marketing Communications. We're NYU's in-house creative agency, and our office is made up of designers, writers, and project managers. And our primary role is the recruitment materials for NYU, but we also manage the brand identity for the university. I'm joined today by two talented Marcom colleagues. Kat and Lena, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kat Richardson. I am our Director of Content Strategy and Development. Thank you for sharing your Friday morning with us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lena Capone. I'm a senior graphic designer with Marketing Communications. And if you hear some meowing, that's my co-host. Sorry, he's also very excited to be here. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, Lena, I think you can share your screen now. Again, welcome everybody to Brand Basics, Introduction to NYU Brand. We're going to try to make this fun and interesting, so and hopefully you'll all find it helpful. The purpose of this is to share some of the brand basics, which are the foundational work that we did to develop the brand guide, and then also jump into some useful tools and resources that we have available on the website that you hopefully can find useful in your day-to-day work. We're calling the beginning of this presentation Branding 101, which is going to jump into some basic terminology of what is brand, what is branding, that type of thing. Then we're going to go into some of the features of the NYU brand, which are who we are, how we sound and how we look. We're going to walk through some brand resources that Kat and Lena are going to walk you through, stop for some questions, and then we're going to jump into a demo where we're going to walk through the website and explain how you can find some of these tools and templates and resources. And then we're going to break out into some rooms so that you can get to know some of your colleagues. But also, we have a few fun exercises that shouldn't be too taxing, so hopefully you stick around for that part of the presentation. Everything you see in this presentation is part of the nyu.edu/brand website. We've kind of distilled it down into some key elements just to make this keep this meeting under an hour. But if you're interested, you can go to this website address and really dig in deep to all the foundational work that we did to help build this guide. So by the end of this session, we hope you'll understand what makes NYU unique so you can communicate it to others, and how to stay on brand when you write and when you create designs, where to find the tools and resources that are available at nyu.edu/brand, and then how to become a good brand ambassador. We're really hoping that as we spread this work to others in the university, you can share it with your colleagues and hopefully create a ripple effect that is basically the goal of this whole process. So let's start with what is brand. First of all, brand is not the logo. A lot of people think of that. Brand is everything. It's the sum total of all the experiences that we create for our audiences. It's meant to create a feeling, or when someone thinks of us, create a feeling or an idea in their brain. It's kind of like a perception. So when people see our logo or hear our name, they think of something and they also feel something. I like to think of the NYU brand as an iceberg. And what we're going to do today is talk about the things above the water, which are the things you see and hear. So it's how we look and what we use for our communications, as far as our logo we use, the color we use, the fonts, photography, the graphics, and the design of our material. Just as important is how we sound. So how our voice, the NYU voice in writing and speaking and video and social. So Lena's going to be walking you through how we look, and Kat's going to be walking you through our voice later on in the presentation. You can go to the next slide. So what is branding? Branding is simply put, it's the intentional act of influencing or reinforcing what people think about us and what they feel about us. Everything we do as a university and in our day-to-day work influences or affects how people feel and think about NYU and our brand. So everything is an opportunity to kind of make a positive connection and reinforce who we are and what benefit we provide. From the flags that fly over our buildings, to the experiences we create at commencement, to the brochures and emails that we design for students, to the ways we help them guide our campus. Every interaction, every experience is an opportunity to reinforce and resonate a positive brand experience. So why is any of this important? We're in a global competition to attract the best and brightest faculty, staff, and students. It's a big, cluttered and complicated world out there. So if we can kind of coordinate and create clear and connecting communications for students, and do it in a university-wide, we can kind of cut through that clutter and connect. So branding and telling our story well is a way that we can kind of reinforce who we are and the benefit that we provide. We can go to the next slide. So this is an example of a video that was created from Media Productions that talks about telling the NYU story and how we all contribute to that story.
We are all NYU storytellers.
We tell the world who we are and who we hope to be.
NYU was founded to make a university education more accessible.
A mission based on the belief that every person has the power to make a difference.
That mission has led us to this moment right now.
The intersection of energy and possibility, of imagination and creation.
The NYU community is always moving forward.
Evolving, driving connection and inspiration.
Empowering others to find their own way.
And change the world.
NYU is where people's stories unfold.
While each story is unique, they all have one thing in common.
The fact that we own our place at the center of everything.
By sharing this message, you help shape the future of NYU.
You share the opportunity NYU holds.
You show how we innovate and collaborate.
You connect with people.
People who tap into the essence of NYU and use it to make an impact.
That's the power of the NYU story.
Let's share it with the world.
So what was interesting about that video is that all the narration is from administrators throughout the university, which kind of made it a fun internal piece where the voice of our people are actually used throughout the video. So how do we tell the NYU story? First, we did thousands of qualitative and quantitative research to uncover what people thought about us. And then we took that information and we kind of distilled it down into a brand essence, which is kind of the foundational work of a brand identity. So our brand essence was distilled down to owning our place at the center of everything. I'm not going to read all these paragraphs, but I will touch upon some of the highlighted areas. So our goal here is to forge a distinctive space that can be our own. We value embracing diverse backgrounds and perspectives and taking an independent stance in the world. Our heart is in New York City and more than a dozen cities worldwide. We're always where the big ideas are being discussed, fostering innovation. And like our cities, our people have the unique resolve and fortitude to surmount anything. This foundational work in the brand essence is not something that we share externally. It's an internal guidepost that we use as a foundation of the work you're going to see today. And in the end, the stories we tell, the photography we choose, the design layout of our material really is about how you feel this brand essence and less about being straightforward with it. So the next step is taking that brand essence and kind of putting it into use. And the way we did that is we created some personality traits, which are something that allows us to have style and tone, which really helps when we start to think about our voice and our visuals. Kat is going to walk you through our personality and then take you through the NYU voice.
Thanks, Mark. So as Mark just said, now that we have that essence, we have to figure out how to make our audiences and communities really feel that essence in how we communicate and how we tell stories. And that can seem like a little bit of a complicated transition, but one way to make it easier is to think of NYU almost as a person with a distinct personality and voice. So by translating that essence into a personality, we can use it to guide how we sound and how we look. So real quick, we'll just get into the elements of that personality here, which are independent and driven, satisfied in no one's shadow, curious and courageous, unafraid to ask hard questions, cosmopolitan and vibrant, infusing our cities with new energy, and lastly, tenacious and resilient, possessing the grit to persevere. And so, you might describe a person as independent and driven, but you wouldn't say that the way that they talk is independent and driven, right? So now that we know kind of who NYU is as a person, we can get into how that personality is expressed. And that can be expressed through, how we sound. Again, that's our written communication, as well as how we look. That's our visual design. And to continue that metaphor of NYU as a person, this would be kind of like how the person speaks and how they dress or how they write their emails and decorate their apartment. So we'll spend the next 15 minutes or so going over the basics of how you can write and design on-brand communications, like things as simple as what kind of words to use or how to choose what content to feature, and then sort of what colors and photography and fonts to use to make your design recognizable as NYU's. So then on the next slide, when communicating on behalf of NYU, we want the stories we tell and how we tell them to use that NYU voice and give our audiences a strong and consistent impression of who we are. So we'll explore how to do that now. We'll also share some key points about effective communication, which if communication is your job and this is sort of run of the mill for you, great. If this is new information for you, also great. And then we'll also share some resources that are available to you. So these are the voice characteristics that embody the NYU personality. It's really how our audiences should perceive us in all forms of communication. So that's that we're informative and encouraging, inspirational and advocating, understanding and energetic, and optimistic and open-minded. So you probably aren't going to use all of these characteristics every time you communicate, every time you write a 3-line email or a tweet, but if you're drawing from a few of them, then you're likely tapping into that NYU voice successfully. Similarly, if you're avoiding these characteristics on the right side, that's always a great sign. And on the next slide, we have a couple of examples of our voice in action. I'll read them each and then talk about each one in turn. So big ideas emerge from big cities. Big thinkers come from NYU, attracting over $400 million in external research and academic support each year. Our community is doing work that makes a recognizable impact. In every field, we push the boundaries of knowledge in our mission to make the world more connected, safe, and just. So this first example is tapping into that informative, energetic, inspirational, and advocative qualities of the NYU voice, and might be used for prospective grad or undergrad students, faculty or staff, possibly in some kind of admissions or sort of like HR recruitment material. And then the second example is called Make, Change, Lead. We know who we are and what world we want to live in. We find strength in our many voices and perspectives of our community, and we believe that being true to ourselves and good to each other is the best way forward. We've been waiting for the moment to do something big, bigger than ourselves, and now is our time. So this example really leans into being understanding and energetic. It's inspirational and advocative. It's also optimistic, and it's meant to spur action. So you might use it to frame an event that requires enthusiastic participation, one of our many sort of hackathons, conferences, forums, something like that. So that's just two examples for you to serve as a starting point as you explore the NYU voice. And then these are some basic voice and tone considerations that will help keep communications stay on track. It's always important to think about the appropriate length and tone for both your audience and your channel. So like we'll be speaking to donors differently than we speak to current students. And an Instagram post is going to be shorter and usually more casual in tone than an email. Being direct will always help keep things short, and then using common words when possible, defining acronyms and key terms, and creating transitions from idea to idea will make communications accessible to the widest possible audience range. And then I think on the right side, we just have sort of a mirror image of those points, which are things to avoid. And then one especially useful resource we offer is our editorial style guide. So having the same standards for grammar and capitalization and comma usage and things like which terms we choose to use for inclusivity can help us create a really consistent experience for our audiences across divisions and departments and campuses. So you can use this guide to create content for anything, whether it's a course description in Albert or a tweet or a newsletter, or even like a script for a promotional video. And on the next slide, we have a few examples of what you'll find in there. A lot of them seem small, but are really important. So for example, we try to remove gender from common words wherever we can. So first year student and not freshman, upper level students instead of upperclassmen. And we always say things like New York City instead of New York, because we're referring to the city and not the state. And then one caveat here is just that we're not saying that some of the things in here are the only correct way to do things. It just helps if we all make the same choice about which one we're using so that people have a consistent experience of us and we look organized. So as we wrap up on voice and tone, just to reiterate, here are some key takeaways to keep in mind. First and foremost being readability. NYU, as we know, has a huge international population. Our content reaches people from many countries, lots of different backgrounds. So it's good to consider using common words and being direct, as well as defining key terms to produce content that can be widely understood. Then some overlap with that is clarity. Communicating large amounts of complicated information to our community is necessary. We have to do it, but it's also challenging. So always looking for that balance of specificity and generality. So considering, what are the details our audience actually needs to know, because I think as we've all experienced, too much information can cause just as much confusion as too little. And then similarly, length. We interact with people who are constantly overloaded with information. So even when communicating something complex, less is usually more. Best practice for emails, for example, is to keep them around 200 words. That is sometimes impossible, and it's a challenge to be that concise, but shorter content really does help the message get through. And then as last thoughts on content, here are just a couple of resources that are all available on nyu.edu/brand that can help you with actual content generation. So if you're a communicator or storyteller at NYU, our content strategy guide can help you choose stories that align with the NYU brand. It also includes information about our different audience segments and how each of them sort of choose to receive and digest information and what they're looking for from us. It has ideas for stories that you can just pick up and use as is, or that you can use as a starting point for your own inspiration. It also has best practices for different media channels and other helpful stuff. And then we already touched on that editorial guide, but if you send a lot of student-facing emails or create presentations, write social media posts, or are a communications or marketing professional, it'll really help you maintain a clear and consistent communication style that aligns with NYU overall. And then lastly, how to develop news stories is something that we won't have a ton of time to touch on in this brand basics workshop, but you can use this story creation worksheet to help sort of plan and prioritize messaging for your content based on the NYU brand. And it's great for just kind of ensuring that your story aligns with those NYU values and that personality if you're not super familiar with those things yet. And now I'm going to pass you off to Lena to get more into design.
Thanks, Kat. So In this section, we're going to go over NYU's visual expression, which is how we embody the NYU personality through design elements like our logos, our colors, our fonts, our photos, and graphics. And at the end of the section, we'll also go over some tips for designing and some resources that are helpful to you at NYU. So like you can see on this page, NYU's visual expression is clearly connected to our urban roots, and it's characterized by bold typography, colors, and imagery. First up in this section, we'll discuss logos. And a logo is a symbol of who we are and what we represent. So even though it's not the entirety of our brand, it is still a really important component of it. And NYU's torch is an iconic university logo. Its simplicity allows it to be easily recognized along the busy streets of New York City and other global campuses. And there are three variations of our logo: short, long, and stacked. The short version is the primary NYU logo, and it's easily recognizable at a variety of sizes for both print and digital. So you can pretty much use it anywhere. When in doubt, I'd say opt for this one. The long version is a little bit more specific. It's mainly used for external and formal communications. So you can use this one when you're speaking to an audience that needs that additional context of the full name, or when taking a more formal approach to your design. And then the stacked version is mainly for very small applications. So think like social media icons or really large applications like our flags. You probably won't use this one as much as the rest, but I think it's important to get the context of where all of these are being used. We also have a number of supporting lockups and a university seal that represent the different aspects of our identity. So all of our lockups, like you can see, are designed with that torch box as a consistent element so that no matter where we are, we're still visually connected to the university. And the seal all the way on the right is reserved for special occasions like commencement and sometimes swag, like I have one on my sweatshirt. And we won't get into too much detail on all of these, so you can find more information about all of them if you're curious on the brand website. So speaking of commencement, it is one of the most impactful displays of our principal brand color, NYU Violet. And if you were ever a graduate, a volunteer, or a proud family member, then you probably know what this looks like. It's a sea of NYU Violet. And even if you're visiting Manhattan around graduation season, when you encounter violet gowns, you know that they're NYU's. So this just goes to show the connection that NYU has to its color palette. These are our three main brand colors. So NYU Violet is our principal brand color. And violet in general is quite distinct. It has long been associated with that nonconformist who pushes boundaries to leave their mark on the world. And because of the strong association that NYU has with this color, you should try to use it in every communication and design. Ultraviolet is an electrified version of NYU Violet that you can use to emphasize important information or to add some more excitement. And black strikes that perfect balance between sophistication and edginess when used alongside our other brand colors. On this page, underneath all the color names, we've included their values, and we do not expect you to remember these. Don't worry. You can find them and copy them and use them on our brand guidelines if you need them. As a university, we have a lot to say in writing, and the fonts that we use when expressing these messages holds a lot of weight in our written communication. NYU has two brand typefaces, Gotham and Mercury. So like you saw on the last slide, you can find Gotham pretty much all over New York City. It's grounded in our urban landscape and historical signage and is an integral part of NYU's visual identity. You can use Gotham or its free alternative Montserrat whenever communicating on behalf of NYU, like on websites, social media images, resources for students. And our secondary font, Mercury, is a more traditional looking serif that you can also use in more formal communications. But when in doubt, use Gotham. If you don't already have access to Gotham, you can find out how to get a license through our brand guidelines. And here you'll also find ways to purchase Mercury and also free download links to Montserrat and Franco Libra. Photography is a powerful tool for conveying NYU's strength, vibrancy, and spirit. And the right imagery will really help bring your story to life while connecting to the university's larger narrative. Although we're not discussing video in this session today specifically, it's also important to keep in mind that a lot of the tone and style recommendations that we'll be discussing can apply to video also. So our photo style is immersive, street level, full of life, saturated, and unexpected. We want our audience to feel like they're immersed in our story, whether that takes place outside or in a classroom. And through imagery saturated with color, our photography should capture that life and vibrancy that's in our urban locations. On the right, we just have some things that our photography is not. So you want to try to avoid photos that feel too distanced or too grandiose, stiff, bland, or generic. And the student experience is so broad. So how do we actually capture that? Like, what do we take pictures of? We've bucketed our photography into 3 main categories: environmental, topical, and people. So environmental photos are inspiring images that capture the colors, texture, and movements of our cities. Topical photos are documentary style images that can add context to your communications. And finally, we aim to show the people who actually make up our NYU community. And you can do this through photos that show student life or by featuring actual students. You can download free NYU stock photography from our brand toolkit. And this gallery is curated to our 3 main categories and includes shots from our global centers as well. We're going to go over in the demo where you can find this and how you can download it. So stay tuned for that. And the Photo Bureau also offers photographic services to the university community and curates a much more extensive gallery of imagery, which we're also going to show you how to get access to that. Lastly, in the section, we have our graphics. City streets are a representation of our urban spirit, and they're a metaphor for the exploration, intersection, and movement of people and ideas at NYU. And this is the idea that our graphics were really built off of. NYU City Grid is a flexible graphic element that you can use in a variety of ways. On this slide, for example, the grid is a subtle background behind text that opens up space for a dynamic photo of New York City on the right. And you can use the city grid in your designs in 3 different ways. You can crop a portion of it as an overlay or a background. You can focus on a few intersections as a border, or you can pull out just a single line to guide your viewers, highlight information, and break up content. I think it's important to note here too that these guidelines can help you use the city grid in ways that are custom to your communications, but a lot of the templates that we provide already incorporate these in these ways. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. And in the exercises that we'll be doing later, we'll also give you a chance to get familiar with some of those templates. Right, so before we wrap up the section, wanted to go over a few examples of how the NYU brand is in use around the university right now, as well as some tips for designing and resources. So first, you want to establish hierarchy in your designs. Before you do anything else, the most important thing to do is to consider the hierarchy of your information. So ask yourself, what is the first thing that you want your audience to experience, and how are you going to make sure that they encounter it? The placement and scale of text, photos, and graphics within a layout will help establish this hierarchy of your information. Next, you want to try to limit fonts. So like we discussed earlier in the writing section, less is usually more. And this is especially true when it comes to fonts. In most designs, it's best to limit yourself to a maximum of 2. And lastly, use negative space. So negative space refers to the blank areas in your design, essentially where you can give your eyes a rest. So instead of interpreting blank space as something to fill every time you're designing something, you can think of it as a tool to help guide your audience through your designs. And to wrap up this section, here are some design resources that are available to you at NYU. Our brand guideline site, which we've mentioned extensively throughout this presentation, is a much more detailed version of this session. So it contains everything that we've talked about and more, including a PDF version of the brand guidelines that you can save or print out. And from our brand guidelines, you can also download official NYU templates for Google and Canva for things like presentation decks, social media posts, Zoom, hold screens, and more. And then finally, you can download our NYU brand toolkit for everything that you need to start using the NYU brand. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Mark to go over some brand resources at NYU.
Thanks, Lena. So on the website as well, there's a help section. And in that section, it includes all these offices that exist in University Relations and Public Affairs, as well as in IT that you can access to get further information about design and content and creative strategy, digital accessibility, the resources for web applications and digital experiences, global inclusion, photography, printing, public affairs, video. We have little descriptions along with contact details in the help section of our site that hopefully, and if you have any questions beyond that, always reach out to our team. I think our email is brand@nyu.edu. And again, all this is on this the site that we mentioned earlier, nyu.edu/brand. So we have just we can take a few minutes if you have any immediate questions, or we will be following up with a form that you can ask additional questions as you kind of take all this in. I know this is a lot of information to give to you at once, but if there's any immediate questions that you have before we jump into the demo, put it in the chat or come on screen and ask it. Good. I hope that's a good sign. But again, we will be sending out a follow-up email, and you can ask your questions at that point, or just reach out to us at our email or personally. So, Lena, let's jump into the demo.
Hi again. Okay. So in this demo, we wanted to go over a few things that you might use the most in your day-to-day. A lot of you are communicators, so I feel like this might be really important to all of you. So I want to go over first the brand toolkit, so where to find it, and then how to add a shortcut to your Google Drive, the editorial guide, which we've already touched on, but where you can find it, and an overview of that document. Third, photography, so where to download NYU photos and requesting access to the photo bureau gallery. And then lastly, where to find our templates and an overview of what's available to you. So we're going to jump over to the brand guidelines. So when you go to nyu.edu/brand, this is what you're going to find. This is our brand guidelines site, and it has things like the video that we all watched earlier, as well as some information that we didn't really go over, but is also really important, like the research behind all of this, the content strategy, as well as all the stuff that Kat and I were talking about, like writing in our style, designing, and then more specifically, how to create messaging and visual assets. Here's where the brand toolkit is, so we'll get back to it in a second, as well as some shortcut links to our most used templates, our logos and mockups, and then specific documents for writing and design. And then this was what Mark was just referring to, the brand resources, so they're all in the Get Help section of our website. So scrolling back up to the brand toolkit, when you click into here, it's going to open up this Google Drive folder. And you want to make sure that you're logged in with your NYU email address. Otherwise, it's going to ask that you request access. Unfortunately, Sternies, it will also ask that you request access. You can either log in through your NYU email and just get immediate access, or you can just request it and then we'll give it to you because you're at Stern. So here's the brand toolkit. And then the editorial guide, jumping right into here. So this is where you'll find our editorial guide. And this is the really comprehensive document that we talked about earlier. Once this loads. So the entire table of contents is hyperlinked, and you can click on each of these and immediately jump to that section. You can also navigate it through the outline over here if that's easier for you. And this is just a really great resource for literally everything that you can think about relating to our content and our style. I also want to point out that this is a living document that our team is constantly updating. So our last update was in March 2023. So I'd recommend referring back to this in Google Drive or bookmarking it and adding it to your Google Drive so that you can refer to the actual document, and as opposed to downloading a PDF and having it static. So next are photography. There are a couple places where you can find photography. So what we were mentioning earlier was our gallery of pretty finely curated NYU stock photography. So you can find things like general photos of our campus in New York City, as well as some academic and classroom shots. We also have athletics, some photos from all of our global sites, as well as student life. So this gallery is pretty finely curated. So it's mainly used if you need really quick, like a general image for social media, if you're using it in an email or something. I think that's the best place to go to for that kind of thing. If you're looking for something very specific or you can't find exactly what you need here, you can also request access to the Photo Bureau's gallery. So if we go back to the brand guidelines, and scroll down and click on photography. If you don't already have access to this, because I know a lot of you may already, you can request access through the Photo Bureau's website. So you just email them, ask for access, and you won't have to go through all of these links again. Once you do that, they'll give you a link and then you'll have a password and then you can just bookmark that. So it's really easy to get in there and get what you need. And the last thing that I wanted to go over was the templates. So from this page, you can access all of the templates. And on here, like we were talking about, there's Google Workspace templates, so documents like the agenda, flyer, the letterheads, meeting notes, presentation templates for Google Slides in these two styles, so bold and elegant. You can also request business cards through NYU iBuy. You can download the amazing Zoom backgrounds that my colleagues and I have, as well as hold screens and social media templates. Here too, I just wanted to point out that if you don't already have a Canva account, it is free to sign up. That's the only thing that you need in order to use these is a Canva account. So that's pretty much it. That's all we wanted to go over in this demo. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to the brand exercises?